A young boy stood before a picture on the wall of a home in Lynchburg, Virginia. The picture depicted Cain killing his brother Abel. The image became permanently fixed in the child's mind. Desmond Thomas Doss looked at this biblical scene and could not understand how one person could take the life of another. The Doss family lived modestly. His father worked as a carpenter, his mother took care of the home and raised 3 children. They were Seventh-day Adventists, and faith permeated every day of their lives. Saturday was a sacred day of rest. The 10 Commandments hung on the wall next to that very picture. The 6th commandment stated, "Thou shalt not kill." Desmond grew up as a quiet and obedient boy. He helped his mother with household chores, looked after his younger brother, and read the Bible. One day, he witnessed a fight between his father and uncle. His father grabbed a gun. His mother threw herself between them. Desmond snatched the weapon and carried it away. He made a promise to himself never to touch a firearm with the intent to harm another person. Years passed. Desmond became a young man. He worked at a lumber mill, then as a carpenter. Life was simple and measured. He met a girl named Dorothy Schutte. They fell in love. Dorothy was a nurse, and Desmond admired her desire to help people. December 7th, 1941, changed everything. Japanese planes attacked Pearl Harbor. America entered the war. Young men across the country received draft notices. Desmond could have obtained a deferment as a defense industry worker, but he didn't want that. He felt he should serve his country. In the spring of 1942, Desmond went to the induction center. He filled out the paperwork and indicated that he refused to carry a weapon due to religious beliefs. An officer looked at him with bewilderment. Desmond explained that he wanted to serve as a medic. He would save lives, not take them. He was sent to Fort Jackson training camp in South Carolina. Problems began from day one. Sergeants yelled at him, demanding he take a rifle. Desmond refused. The soldiers in the barracks didn't understand him. They thought he was a coward, hiding behind religion. At night, his belongings would disappear. His boots were thrown out the window. Someone beat him in the darkness. The command tried to get rid of Doss. They offered him psychiatric evaluation. They threatened him with court-martial. Captain Jack Glover didn't want him in his company. He believed that a soldier without a weapon put everyone else in danger. Desmond stood his ground. He cited his rights as a conscientious objector. Training continued. Desmond learned to provide first aid, stop bleeding, apply splints, and carry wounded from the battlefield. He trained harder than the others. He ran with stretchers, carrying a full medic's kit. Physically, he was ready, but the Army was still trying to get rid of him. A moment came when the company was supposed to receive leave before shipping out to the front. Everyone except Desmond. They detained him on Saturday, the day of his Sabbath. This was a violation of his religious rights. Desmond's father, a World War I veteran, wrote a letter to the command. He pointed out the illegality of their actions. Desmond was released. The 77th Infantry Division shipped out to the Pacific Theater. First, they went to the islands of Leyte and Guam. Desmond saw real war for the first time. The sounds of gunfire and explosions, the smell of blood and gunpowder, the screams of the wounded. He rushed to every fallen soldier, paying no attention to the danger. During one battle, a sniper wounded an officer. Everyone took cover, not daring to move. Desmond crawled to the wounded man under fire. Bullets whistled over his head, kicking up small fountains of dirt. He reached the officer, applied a tourniquet, and stopped the bleeding. Then he dragged him to cover. The officer survived. Another time, a grenade blast wounded several soldiers at once. Desmond darted between them, bandaging wounds and administering morphine injections. His hands were covered in blood. Shrapnel flew around him. He didn't stop until he had helped everyone. The soldiers began to change their attitude toward him. They saw that this strange guy without a rifle wasn't afraid of death. In the spring of 1945, the division received orders to participate in the operation on Okinawa. This was the last major obstacle before the invasion of Japan itself. The Japanese were prepared to defend to the last man. American command knew this would be a bloody battle. The 77th Division was to capture the Maeda Escarpment, which American soldiers nicknamed Hacksaw Ridge. It was a sheer cliff about 400 feet high. At the top, the Japanese had created a powerful system of fortifications. Caves, tunnels, bunkers. Machine gun nests covered every meter of the approaches. The attack began on April 29th. Soldiers climbed the cliff, clinging to rope ladders and cargo nets. The Japanese unleashed a torrent of fire on them. Machine gun bursts cut people down. Grenades exploded on ledges. Mortar shells fell from above. Many didn't make it to the top. Desmond climbed with everyone else. His medical bag beat against his back. Bandages, tourniquets, and sulfa powder hung from his belt. In his hands, he carried extra stretchers. Soldiers fell beside him. He stopped at each one, checked for a pulse, and provided aid. Then, continued climbing. At the top, hell only intensified. The Japanese counterattacked again and again. They burst from their shelters, charging with grenades and bayonets. The Americans fought back, losing men. The battlefield was strewn with bodies. The wounded cried out for help. Desmond moved between them. He bandaged wounds under fire. He dragged soldiers to the edge of the escarpment. There, he devised a system. He tied the wounded with rope using a special knot he had learned as a child. Then, he lowered them down the cliff to the medics below, one after another. Each descent took several minutes. Each time, he risked being killed. The battle lasted all day. By evening, the Americans received orders to retreat. The position was too dangerous. The Japanese were preparing a new counterattack. Soldiers began descending from the escarpment, but wounded remained at the top. Many couldn't move on their own. Desmond stayed. He was alone at the top, surrounded by enemies. Darkness descended on the battlefield. The Japanese moved in the shadows. He heard their voices, saw their silhouettes. But he continued working. He found the wounded, dragged them to the edge, and lowered them down. His hands bled from the rope. His back ached from the strain. After each man he saved, he prayed, "Lord, help me get one more." All night he didn't stop. He crawled across the escarpment, checking every body. Were they still alive? Could they be saved? He bandaged wounds in the darkness, by touch. He gave water from his canteen. He whispered words of encouragement, then again dragged them to the edge and lowered them down. The Japanese passed by him several times. They didn't notice him in the darkness, or they paid no attention to the unarmed medic, or God concealed him from their eyes. Desmond believed the latter. He felt the presence of something greater protecting him. By dawn, no living wounded remained at the top. Desmond lowered the last soldier, then descended himself. Below, his comrades met him. They couldn't believe their eyes. Medics counted the rescued. The total was 75 men. 75 lives saved by one person in one night. But the battle for Hacksaw Ridge continued. In the following days, the Americans stormed the escarpment again. Desmond climbed to the top again. He continued to rescue the wounded. On May 5th, he was treating an officer when a Japanese grenade exploded. Shrapnel riddled his legs.
The pain was unbearable. Desmond lay on a stretcher. But while they were carrying him to cover, shelling began. The medics dropped the stretcher and took cover. A severely wounded soldier fell nearby. Desmond rolled off the stretcher. He crawled to the wounded man and placed him in his spot. He himself crawled toward cover. Bullets hit the ground nearby. One struck his arm, shattering the bone. In the shelter, Desmond applied a splint to himself using a rifle stock. He used a rifle for the first time in his life, but not as a weapon. He waited 5 hours for evacuation. They didn't find him until evening. By that time, he had lost a lot of blood. He was sent to the hospital. Treatment took months. Doctors removed shrapnel from his legs. They repaired the shattered bone in his arm. But infection entered the wounds. Gangrene set in. Desmond lost several ribs due to tuberculosis, which he contracted in the hospital. He lost hearing in one ear from antibiotics. While he lay in the hospital, the war ended. Japan surrendered. Soldiers were returning home. Word reached Desmond. He had been awarded the Medal of Honor. This was America's highest military decoration. He became the first conscientious objector to receive this medal.
On October 12, 1945, the ceremony took place at the White House. President Harry Truman personally presented the medal. Desmond stood on crutches, his arm in a cast. The president shook his good hand and said it was an honor for him to meet such a brave man. Desmond returned to Lynchburg. He married Dorothy. They bought a small farm. He wanted to live quietly, away from noise and fame, but his health was broken. Tuberculosis tormented him for years. He spent 5 years in a sanatorium. He lost 1 lung and several ribs. Despite the pain and illness, Desmond didn't complain. He worked on the farm as much as he could. He went to church every Saturday. He told young people about his faith and about how one could serve their country without violating God's commandments. Years passed. Desmond became a symbol that courage isn't always connected with weapons, that one could be a soldier without killing, that faith could be stronger than fear. Military historians studied his achievement. Journalists conducted interviews. But Desmond remained a modest man. He always said he didn't consider himself a hero. He simply did what he had to do. He gave credit to his fellow soldiers who fought beside him. He remembered those he couldn't save. He prayed for the souls of the dead, both Japanese and American. Dorothy died in 1991. Desmond grieved deeply, but after a few years he married again. His second wife, Frances, cared for him until the end. Desmond's health continued to decline, but he didn't lose his faith or optimism. On March 23, 2006, Desmond Thomas Doss died in his home. He was 87 years old. He was buried at the National Cemetery in Chattanooga, Tennessee. Veterans he had saved attended the funeral, along with their children and grandchildren. 75 people saved at Hacksaw Ridge went on to live their lives. They started families, had children. Their children had their own children. Hundreds of people exist because one man refused to take up arms, but didn't refuse to risk his life. His medal is kept in a museum. His name is engraved on memorials. His story is told to new generations, a story about how faith, conviction, and courage can change the world. About how true strength lies not in the ability to kill, but in the ability to save. About how one person can change the fate of many. A monument now stands at the Maeda Escarpment. The Japanese call this place the American Cliff of Death. Every year, tourists come there. They look down from the height of that cliff. They try to imagine how one man could, at night, in darkness, under enemy fire, lower 75 wounded soldiers down.